Hi, everyone, and welcome to our community conversation to support a compassionate and resilient response to the COVID-19 crisis. I'm Barrie, and I'm the host for this series of webinars where we're welcoming a unique panel of guest teachers and community leaders each day to just come together and create a space for community connection and to plant the seeds that perhaps can be taken back to your local communities. So I'd like to know, can you hear me? Is your sound okay? So if you can just type in if you can hear me. No audio. Oh, audio. Okay, so at least one person can hear me. So, yeah, so sounds good. So people can hear me. I always say this: people can hear me. So if you can't hear me, try rebooting. And then I realize as soon as I say it, if you can't hear me, it's not much help. So, okay. So welcome everybody, and I'm going to be introducing our panel. And as I do that, if you would like to type in your name and where you're from, where you're joining us from, that would be great. So we have Matt Taylor joining us today, and Matt is on the National Pain Task Force representing yoga. He's also a past president of the International Association of Yoga Teachers and really a pioneer in the field of yoga therapy. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
We have Noah Maze joining us from California. Noah Maze is of Noah Maze Yoga, Maze Method. He's on Yoga International, longtime friend and teacher trainer. So welcome, Noah.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We have Shannon Crow of Ontario. I always forget exactly where in Ontario, but Western Ontario, I think, or Central. And Shannon Crow is the creator and administrator of the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group, which has over 8,000 teachers. And Shannon, you've just been doing such an amazing job these past few weeks. I've been watching the way you've been responding to support teachers all around the world. So thank you and welcome. Great to have you.
Thank you.
At the top. So we have Shamina from Brooklyn, New York, Janine from Montreal, Lisa from Mid-Michigan, Louise from Belmont, Massachusetts, Mary Jo from Newfoundland, Caterina from Italy, Carrie from Rochester, Rihanna from Dublin, Betsy from Montreal, Ali from Rochester, Rich from Houston, and probably more that I haven't gone to yet. So,
can you hear me, Barrie?
Welcome, everybody. Yes, I can hear you. So this is Molly Lannon Kenny, who is also a real pioneer in the field of yoga therapy, and most recently the creator of bedside yoga practices to support the end of life. So that's our panel for today. So let's jump right in. Actually, Molly, I wonder if you'd be willing to offer us a short invocation to usher us into this conversation today.
Sure. What comes to me right away is the short Purnam chant, which is the opening shloka of the Isha Upanishad, which is about Purnam, about wholeness. And that seems particularly appropriate right now. The very, very loose translation is, this is whole, that is whole. When we take the whole away from the whole, what's left is still whole. So I think especially now, being reminded of our essential wholeness is important. So sure, it's short and sweet. I'll do it 3 times. It's short. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vaishishyate Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vaishishyate Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vaishishyate Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So again, welcome to everyone that's joining us from all over the world. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be able to meet with you in this space. And I created these conversations just over the past weekend. I was sitting at home thinking, I just wanted to do something, and my go-to is always to connect and create community. And I just thought, I just really reached out to about 30 people I knew that I would love to just sit around and talk to about this new reality we've all been lurched into over the past weeks. And so I just sent a bunch of messages out, and most people said yes right away. And these came together really quickly. So that's kind of the background. And the intention, I think, is really just to generate and offer, just to really create a space to be together, first of all, and to generate perhaps ideas for coming together and connection that those of you listening can then bring back to your local communities in whatever way makes sense for you. And before we get started into our panel discussion, I want to just mention a couple things. One is I really want to acknowledge the privilege that we all have just to have the time and space to have this conversation. Because several of the teachers I reached out to about this are studio owners who said, I would love to be part of this, but I am scrambling to get my courses online. I know many of you participating might be in the same position. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm particularly aware of, I'm someone that already works a lot at home, and I've been working online for years. And it is a privilege just to have the time and space to come together like this. The other thing I want to mention is there is a constraint to the technology we're using. So I really invite everyone participating to use the chat window to share your comments, ask your questions. I'll monitor that as best I can as we go through our conversation. So we really invite your participation in that way. All right, so let's get started. I came up with 4 questions when I did the write-up for these sessions, and they are, how can our practices serve us right now? How can we best serve others? What are the challenges we're facing, and what are the creative solutions we're coming up with to continue to support our communities? And yesterday in our panel, we didn't get past the first 2, which I think is fine. So we'll see where it goes today. So I'd like to begin by inviting each of you on the panel to share a little bit about what's going on for you today. Like, what is your reality in your community, in your family, in your life, whatever you want to share. And what is one understanding or perspective that is supporting you today? So, Molly, would you like to start?
Sure, I'm happy to start. So where I am today is I just got back home to my house in a little rural village in Mexico. I spent a week up outside of Mexico City at a Benedictine monastery studying with, or I don't even know, soaking in the wisdom of Larry Ward, who was a senior Dharma teacher with Thich Nhat Hanh, who I cannot recommend enough. If you want some instant medicine, find Larry Ward at the Lotus Institute. But as part of that, eventually the monastery was evacuated. There was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, people not sure whether they would be able to get home. I was feeling the same thing. Like I wanted to be able to be home so that I just was planted someplace and not stranded in transit. somewhere. So I'm just waking up this morning to the reality of like my little next door neighbor using my internet out on my front porch because all of her classes have been canceled, and people just kind of trying to figure out what to do. We're a couple weeks behind over here. And there's a real dichotomy, I would say, between what people are calling as like panic, and then what other people are saying is like, oh, this is all just overblown. This is just fake news, just business as usual. And so that's kind of the reality that I'm in. I'm very happy to be home, though. My cats don't seem to be affected at all. Don't seem to be worried. And I think the second part of the question is what is one thing that's helpful? Is that what it was? So something I shared when I was at the monastery, and I just have to say, because I'm happy and proud, I took my vows of bodhisattva yesterday with Sister Peace in the Order of Thich Nhat Hanh, and so was really immersed in that community. And one of the things that I shared in one of our Dharma sharing circles was my beloved sister died about a year and a half ago. And I know, of course, Matt and Barrie already know that. And I'm still, as Jen Taylor might say, processing that. And one of the things that came up that I shared with the group was that when my sister was dying, I sent a notice, an email out to my family, who's a large family. And I said, we're in a brand new place. And as much as we think we know each other, we have no idea how each one of us is going to react to this new reality, to this process of Erin dying and then her death and the aftermath of her death. So it's completely new. And so I beseech you, my family, to just recognize each other and sort of give a lot of leeway for however anyone is acting. They're acting out of a new place that even they don't know how to act anymore. And so could we take things less personally? Could we assign less motive? Could we assign less weight to people's responses or lack of responses? And I shared that with my Dharma group vis-a-vis this same moment right now. And that's what's really coming forward for me right now is in my own practice is how do I find space and patience and acceptance and love for all of people's reactions, people who are underreacting, people who are overreacting, people who are snippy, people who are scared, people who like want their money back. That many of you are in the same boat as me, like I don't have your money anymore. Like the money you paid me for retreat 6 months ago is gone. I don't keep it in a separate account, right? So all of these kinds of new realities that we can really find space for one another to know that each one of us is acting out of a place that we've never been called to act before. So we don't know how to act. We don't know what to do. So can we offer that patience and compassion to ourselves, but also the people around us who might be like pushing our buttons or sort of triggering us into reactivity, just recognizing that, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, do you want to go next?
Sure. I love to follow Molly because she's so good. It warms everything up. So I'm checking in from Iowa City, Iowa. We just moved here last summer. Up till a couple weeks ago, enjoying the benefits of an international family. Now scrambling to get children home from Mexico City. They're actually coming and they're going to live with us because their other home is New York City, and that's a questionable place to be right now. So they're coming in next Tuesday. So all of a sudden we're going to go from a empty nest to Neil Pearson and Shelley Proskal particularly. It was like everybody had a hairball around actually changing policy out of the power structures of the current systems. I think the thing I keep wondering though right now, and that's part of my practice, is the assumption that's where we want to go. And I'm not even sure that's a very short term, other than the very real needs people need for revenue. But I think going forward, I keep asking, where is it we really want to end up, and how can we do that benevolently? Have a skillful, benevolent response to that. So that practice of poking the assumptions, we just assume we want to get back, and I'm not sure that's a valid assumption as a yogi from a standpoint of discernment, and that would be a question That's the question I'm sitting with right now. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Shannon, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I feel like days seems like time has changed completely. That's one thing that I'm noticing right now, that I feel like a week ago or 2 weeks ago seems very long ago. I am up here in like 3 hours north of Toronto in Canada. And I feel like because we have a global group of connected yoga teachers, that helps me to see what's kind of going on around the world. A little bit about me. So I have 3 children, 1 living at home. My 2 boys are older and working. And so we've been, my youngest is 15. And so school was canceled last week for 3 weeks. And so we're dealing with immediate boredom, like to the point where she was baking some brownies today, vacuuming yesterday. It's all really helpful. But also a lot of questions. So it's interesting to explain this so my boys are 17 and 21. So explaining this to teenagers and early 20s has been interesting. And I feel like the dynamic that has kind of gone on in me and maybe around the world is what I'm seeing here as well. So backing things up, I can't remember when it was, because like I said, time seems to have really shifted, but I had a conversation when this first started to come, and it was more so around China. We had a conversation with a yoga teacher who was talking about her studio policy. So Jen came into our group and was talking about how everyone got their temperature taken at the door. All of their hands were sprayed with alcohol. And I remember thinking, I don't think we do that at our studios in North America. It feels like an invasion of your privacy or something. And we had a really good conversation about how this is maybe ego stepping in, which was fascinating. And then I had a conversation with a yoga teacher in Italy not very long after that. And that was when I felt like I wanted to just start shouting at everyone around me of how we need to deal with this. And I actually had to pull back quite a bit after that. But let me tell you about that day, because I got off the call with the teacher from Italy who was saying 2 weeks ago, we were where you are. We were just thinking, it's okay. We'll just keep having our classes and we'll just distance ourselves in our classes. We'll have less people. We'll be really careful to wash our hands, but we'll still get together. The moment I got off of that phone call, I heard the garage door, and my partner Sean and I both work from home most of the time. And he wasn't supposed to be going anywhere. He had just picked my daughter Sage up from school because her bus was canceled and there was a possible COVID-19 case on her bus. And so all of a sudden it was just like it hit home really fast that she could have been exposed. We self-isolated. We called, my friend works for the health unit. And it was a lot of, honestly, like feeling like sleepless nights, really long days, a lot of still trying to help yoga teachers around the world who were trying to then start to take their yoga online. And a lot of feeling like my practice went out the window in so many ways. So I love your question of like, what is helping? So what helped was to get back to, our internet shuts off at 9:00 at night. It's supposed to be for the teenagers, but it really helps me. We just have a timer and it just shuts down. The test came back negative from that young boy. That was a big relief. And I moved to a place where I felt like the best thing I can do right now is to help yoga teachers to get online. I cannot fight what was going on in me thinking, this can't be. Like, I love what Molly said, that we have to accept where everyone's at, because I feel like my emotions have gone all over the place. So my biggest focus right now is to get yoga teachers and studios online, and other things. Like, there are lots of other things that we can do online.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. It kind of
Noah.
goes to sleep here for a second. There we go.
Hi, thank you for having me. Honored to be a part of these conversations. So I live in Los Angeles, California, and it feels like, living in a big urban area, large population center, feels, I think, perhaps a little bit more in the middle, in the thick of it than someplace with a less of a population density. And I was remarking yesterday how we've got 2 children at home now, so I'm kind of juggling homeschool with everything else. A daughter in 5th grade, a son in 2nd grade, and so our physical education classes are basically, when we can get up from their work and my work and go and move our bodies. And we have a front yard. So we've been playing badminton and, Frisbee. And one of the interesting observations that I had yesterday and the day before is that, in our neighborhood, and we're not in a shelter in place protocol yet. I think that is likely coming. But to see and experience, like, all of the neighbors, walking around in the neighborhood, and to see, families walking together, that like teenagers with their parents walking together, rather than, packs of teenagers and then, adults, and that there is, I feel much more empathy going on, that people are friendlier than usual, socially distant. We're not hugging, we're not shaking hands, but everyone is acknowledging each other and everyone is saying hello, and that this very much is a shared together experience, even as we are being more isolated, in our homes. I definitely have the experience that we're all in this together, like it or not. That's the good news and that's the bad news, right? That this is not a weather event affecting, the northern lands. This is not a hurricane affecting, that part of the world. This is a raging crisis through the whole world. And there's a certain kind of unification experience that brings, right? Like it or not, we're in this together. Like this is our shared world. And a bit of a kind of a leveling of the playing field, right? This is affecting, everyone across the socioeconomic, hierarchy. And so I kind of take heart in those small but important experiences of friendliness, of, acknowledgement of a shared humanity, and that we need each other, right? And whether it's kind of, a socially distant interpersonal interaction, or it's an online interaction like what we're having, it is just that much more important that we are interacting, right? That we are social creatures, and that, the social aspects of our life continue to nourish ourselves, right? To nourish our identities. We're kind of juggling and scrambling every day around here to kind of manage all of the things, right? To have a school schedule and have a 2nd grade curriculum and a 5th grade curriculum, and to acknowledge that patience can get very short, and annoyance and boredom and tempers and kind of sibling relationships and and partner relationships, that we're all in each other's space all the time now, right? So how to create effective boundaries in a shared space environment, how to, kind of facilitate everyone's needs being met, the needs to be together and to communicate and interact as a family unit, the needs to close the doors and go, I've got to go to work now. Like, don't make a lot of noise, try not to fight with your sister. So for me and for us, getting kind of schedules and structure in place has been very important and very helpful. And little things like, our kids get dressed as if they were going to school so that they can go to homeschool rather than stay in pajamas all day, right? Because stay in pajamas all day is what they might typically do on a weekend or, winter break or something like that, right? But stay in pajamas all day is the kind of signal of one's own identity from the outside in that, oh, we're on break now, right? And that we're not on break. This is the new now, right? This is the new normal. So we've got school to do, we've got work to do, we've got things to do. And so even implementing get dressed for your day, that helps to kind of shift awareness, kind of shift and channel intention into the next activity. And so, those things that, creating a schedule and having a sense of kind of self-discipline and intrinsic motivation, these are things that I've been working on for a long time with yogic practice, with my own practices. And so to really use some of those skills in a family environment, is super helpful. And I'd say in terms of my own practices, it's kind of both sides of the spectrum practice. It's the kind of slow down and still your body, contemplative, meditative practices. Those are really necessary. And it's the kind of get up and move your body, inhabit your body, be very physical, whether that's a hatha yoga practice, whether that's, physical education. We play badminton and frisbee are kind of current sports. Both of those are really needed. Like slow your body and mind down and speed your body up, right? Those are both sides of that spectrum are very nourishing. And my contemplations are very much in the realm of the Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata, where in the opening descriptions of the Bhagavad Gita, we get a crisis, right? We get a battlefield. We get a shared field of social and political reality. And it's in that crisis that Arjuna is experiencing that he has this conversation with Krishna, right? With Lord Krishna. That it's not when he's in retreat in the forest doing his yoga teacher training that he has these deeper conversations about reality, about life, about the self. It's in the crisis, right? It's in the raise the stakes. The crisis is upon him, right? And I see that that's very kind of speaks to our times now. Right? It's in the crisis that we have perhaps the greatest opportunity for connection, for transformation. Matt, I very much appreciate what you said about people's tendency to kind of want to get back to normal. Right? First of all, I don't know that there's a norm. We're not going to be able to roll back the clock on this. But the opportunity here is that we have a much greater opportunity than getting back to normal. We have an opportunity for transformation. And what do we want that to look like, right? And how might we participate in in the new normal, right, the baseline's going to shift with this in all sorts of ways. And, where do we want to be when the frenzy of the storm starts to pass?
Thank you. Dianne, welcome. Can you hear us? I'm not sure we can hear you. Is your mic on?
I just wanted to turn off the audio in case there's a lot of background noise going on. Okay. Thank you for your patience. It's been a little bit otherworldly this week. So
yeah, for all of us. So we were just, I'll introduce you for those that don't know. This is Dianne Bondy of Yoga for Everyone. And she's in Ontario also. You're home now, I'm guessing?
I am,
so
yeah.
I'm Ontario also.
Yeah.
And dealing with children at home also, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So we were going around by way of kind of introducing ourselves, sharing what is our reality today, what's going on for us today, and what is one understanding that's been helpful. And again, everyone that's participating, if you, as questions, as comments come up, please put them in the chat so that we have until 2:00 our time, so in about another half hour. And as we have our conversation before the end, we will definitely do our best to get to your questions and share your comments as well. So Dianne, do you want to share what's going on for you today?
Yeah. I am trying my very best to take all the advice that I hear that says, be alert, but don't be anxious. So it's funny, everywhere I go, people have been pulling me aside and saying, did you know that psychic Sylvia Brown wrote in her book, whenever, that this was going to happen in 2020 and that, this is Armageddon or all the things that are going on. And then my whole reaction to everybody constantly bombarding me with these conversations is, can we just pause for a moment and take a deep breath and look at how cyclical things happen, right? So 17 years from around right now in cold and flu season, we had SARS. And we had the same kind of panic, and we moved through it. I think we need to be listening to, the proper channels. But my whole thing with everything is just to kind of pause, listen to this person have their moment of panic, and then hopefully reassure them that, yes, this is going on, but we will get through this. This is historic. If you look back through history, we see that these cyclical things happen all the time, and we were about due for something. And for me, when I look at this whole outbreak, I think to myself, it's an opportunity to kind of reset, right? What are my priorities? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to show up for each other? What do I want to do moving forward? And it's just a nice reset, and it's a nice reset that feels, for lack of a better term, state sanctioned, because, we're all pretty much on lockdown. I can't do a whole lot, although, I've had an online business for the past decade, so I've always got something to do online. However, it's a nice opportunity for us to just take a break. So I've been posting on my Instagram helpful ways to get through the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever we're doing is, to go out there and get a walk, or to go out and garden in your yard, or to clean out the shed that you've been meaning to clean out, or to go under the stairs, which is what I need to do, and pull out everything from underneath the stairs. And just find ways to be productive if that's what you need. Or if it's an opportune time for you to catch up on rest, that would be great. If you have the opportunity to donate to different charities for people who aren't as privileged as ourselves, who get to just stay home and read books, people who still have to go to work or who may have shortfalls in their income, if there's any way we can figure out how to help them, we can still be productive in this time, even though we're not together physically, we still can be together socially on all these platforms. So I'm doing a lot of listening. I'm doing a lot of contemplation, and I'm inviting people also to do the same. Now that you're limited in the things that you can do, what are some of the things that you can let go of that now you can see don't really make a difference? The things that we've been caught up in our everyday lives that aren't actually productive. Where can I rechannel my energies to show up in the world in a way that's more collaborative and that is more unified than what I was doing before. So it's a nice little pause is what I'm taking it as. If you were saying, Noah, I still get up and get dressed and, get myself together, but I'm participating in different ways. And just really, if I go out in the world, listening to where people are at and trying to tell them, think logically. When in history has this happened before? And how did we get through it? And this too shall pass. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to come back to me in 3 weeks after I spent 3 weeks with my kids at home. And my attitude.
Exactly. Yeah. However, I appreciate what all of you shared. And Shannon, we have lots of brownies in our house too. I have a 12-year-old daughter who's at home who also for the first time this morning, unprompted, got up, took a shower, did her hair. So, all that, a lot of what's happening for you guys is happening here too. We're in rural Quebec, about 10 minutes north of the Vermont border, which we just found out is closed. And so we are, again, I feel really fortunate. We don't have any neighbors. We're not surrounded by anyone. So we have lots of space and time and also what you said, Noah, about setting the boundaries and around communication. I just want to make sure to mention that on Friday we have Gina Sencios, who's a nonviolent communication trainer, and she approached me about joining the panel to give some tips about how to work with this time on the level of communication, because we're all going to have different strategies for how we deal with being at home and how that is so important. So that she's going to be on the Friday panel. But I've gone through what's happening for me today. I actually had a really good night's sleep last night for the first time in several days. So physically, yeah, I'm feeling more energy and more able to focus than I have been. But there's also something for me just today, a sadness. It almost feels like that moment in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna reveals the fullness of himself to Arjuna. And it is so overwhelming, not only in its beauty, but in its terror and its suffering. And there's just something for me, like I was thinking this morning about all the children who are no longer in school, that, school was their only safe place in their lives. It was the only place where they could rely on a meal. And just the sadness of that. And of course, that existed before this. Had always existed, but somehow for me, it's really laid bare the suffering in the world. And then right after that, when I went on my Facebook feed, I saw one of my friends, Lisa Patterson, who was on the call yesterday. She's leading a live meditation this week as a fundraiser for a kids' phone helpline. And so that was, the response, a hopeful response, something that we could do. And so those two things have been living so close to me over the past few days, the sadness and the tragedy and the suffering and the pain, but also the possibility, as you spoke to, Matt, that things, this has the potential. Who knows what the historical perspective of this is going to look like, or what this is going to usher in. And so there's also a sense of tremendous energy and hope in that, and the sense that all of us in the yoga community have a role to play in kind of stepping forward to create what we want to see, because the destruction is happening, and it's in that is the potential for something new. So that's kind of where I'm at today. So Jody's saying, I run a food bank and now is the worst of times. Yeah, Jody is going to be I'm assuming this is the same Jody that's going to be on our panel either tomorrow or Friday, who's in St. John's, Newfoundland, and he runs the biggest food bank in that city. And Lauren has also not been sleeping well for a week. Allie's asking, she says, I'm struggling with helplessness and feeling that I can't help out or fix it. Do you have any advice? Would anyone like to speak to that question of feeling helpless and just feeling like you can't fix it and what to do with that?
I'd be happy to share. Is that okay?
Sure.
Because I saw Allie's question there. And again, I just am sorry, but I keep echoing my teacher, Larry Ward, having just spent a transformational week with him. I think the first thing is to recognize that your feelings are okay. Like, that's okay. You don't need to be having any other feelings. And also, you can't fix it. And like, the recognition of that, I think, is going to be helpful too. Like, if we're stuck in this place of like, I have to fix it and I can't, like, of course that's going to feel really oppressive. You can't fix it. None of us can fix it. Or, well, hopefully somebody somewhere can, but I have this feeling it's probably not, any of us right here. Pardon. So I think that very much what Dianne said and what Matt said about looking at like specific productive sorts of ways that we can connect. And I also want to just back up a little bit to something that Noah said. I agree in many ways this is a leveler, but I also think it's really important to see that the leveling of who might be affected like physically by this illness and by this virus knows no boundaries. But the effects is not a leveler at all. Like, some people are going to, I have, of course, in this very poor town that I live in, people are literally wondering where their food's going to come from, how they're going to pay their rent, like what's going to happen. No one's going to stop for them. And so I think that's a really important piece that we have to acknowledge. And that's one of the places that we can figure out about this like helplessness that we can maybe not fix, but we can support the people who will be most dramatically affected, especially by income challenges. And as Barrie said, challenges of people that home is not a safe place. And so this idea that, we're just going to hunker down and, have fun and read books and, like, that's not the reality for many people, and recognizing that. And so looking at those places that we might be able to support. The other piece that Larry talked about a lot, he gave us these spiritual practices for the Dharma, for the Bodhisattva of the earth holder. And recognizing that, as he said, the ecological crisis is a human crisis. And to recognize, and I think this is really something Dianne spoke to, that this is in many ways the earth reclaiming herself. A couple of years ago, I got chikungunya, which is one of the really severe mosquito viruses that can happen down here where I live. And I happened to be up in Seattle, and I saw an infectious disease specialist, and he actually said to me in this kind of bizarre but real way, he was like, well, mosquitoes are going to take back the earth because humans are the worst kind of parasite. We're the exact parasite of a parasite that does nothing but drain its host and is attempting to kill the host. And the host has only one choice, and it's to fight back. And so I would also offer us to not separate our care for Pachamama, Madre Tierra, the earth, whatever you want, however you call it, that practices that might make us feel better as well in the moment is to look at the earth. So it's not only us as human beings, it's all of the species, and it's including Mother Earth. And so what can we do right now? Like, how can we stop using those plastic water bottles and still acting like it's normal? Still taking plastic bags, still all of the choices that we make. I think taking those tiny choices and recognizing like this is our time to connect with the earth and to connect with earth energy and to really see the earth as like the primary that's who's the most sick, and that's who's the most trying to heal, and that we are only like a subset, or like we only exist because the earth exists first. So what can we do for the earth? And then just two other things I wanted to share from Larry. One is, and Matt, I know you'll love this, said the main thing that we have to do right now is to train and practice how to regulate our nervous systems. So the more that we can all do that, whether it's by reaching out to other people, whether it's yoga practices, breath practices, that's a really important thing that we can do that doesn't fix, but allows us to do something. And Larry also talks about we need a new story about what it means to be human, right? So, and that our work as earth holders is to create and nourish communities of resilience. So the new story about what it is to be human, and this is what everybody's been speaking to, is real collective care. And what can we each do to help create these communities of resilience? So I hope in some way that helps Adi, I can't remember the name, Ali maybe, Ali, that you can't fix it. Your feelings of helplessness are totally normal. And so pour yourself into the things that you can do, caring for Madre Tierra and caring for your communities.
All right, thank you. Does anybody want to add anything to that? Dianne.
Let me just unmute myself. I really appreciate that response, and I really appreciate Ali's honesty around feeling helpless. And I get that question a lot of time because I do a lot of work with diversity and inclusion work, and people often feel helpless in those situations as well. Do the little things, right? Baby steps, like you said, with what can I do that are small, tiny little steps that can lead to bigger changes? How do I connect with my community, number one? How do I kind of look out and I mean, it doesn't have to be a big, huge shift. I think all of us want this to be saved and all of us want to contribute to making this better, but just the little things you can do that help you feel better, because once you feel better, you're going to feel more positive about going out in the world, connecting with the people around you, asking the people around you how you can support them if you feel a need to help, and taking some time for yourself. I think self-care is really great when we're struggling, and self-care can look like a nap, or self-care can look like reading, or self-care can look like your yoga practice. But think in smaller terms. I think when we look at the entire picture all at once, it's very easy to become overwhelmed and completely give up, because there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. But can we look at what is in front of us, like right now? What are some very small steps we can do that will have big impact later? And I was really appreciative of I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. My memory is like shot these days. I was very grateful about you saying, we as humans are the worst parasites to the earth. I've been saying that for years. Like, what can we start doing to give back to something that has given us so much? So start small, start local, start in your community, start in your friend groups, and don't beat yourself up, because it won't help. Make sure you take care of yourself, because you can't do anything if you're depleted.
And just to add on to that, Dianne, I think one small thing we can do as yoga teachers is that, we are all, by virtue of what we do, we're community leaders. We gather groups of people and work with groups of people. And so again, part of the hope of coming together in this panel is that you can take this idea and just bring it back to your communities, because in addition to your online classes, we need to create spaces like this, and each of you can do that for your own community. A few days ago, I got a message from one of my students, and she's around my age, she's 52, and she said, I realize I've always thought of myself as much younger than I am. And it's only now that this is the first time I realize that people are looking to me for guidance. And so for me, that is such that is our opportunity. And that is also kind of our responsibility now, I feel like, in the work we do and in the role we play, is to, in our own small way, gather groups of people and just create human connection. And I just want to read what Angela wrote, because I think it links to this too. This is Angela. She says, my daughter worked for the city of New York, and she shared how hard the state government workers are working to get support in place for those in need. I'm sharing in general terms. She's been sharing real-time nuts and bolts work, like getting food truck from New Jersey for kids who get food at school in New York City. And that's another thing about getting small, is the problem can look overwhelming, but it really helps me to remember that there are so many good people just wanting to help and working really hard in these small ways all the time in every part of our society. So to me, that is thank you for sharing that, Angela, because it giving a human face to these issues is really helpful. Great.
Can I share something, Barrie, as well?
Yes, I just want to, before that, I just want to say we have about 10 minutes left. So if you do have any questions or anything you want to share, type them in the chat and we'll try to get to it. Yes.
I just really appreciate that someone is calling out like the feeling of this helplessness, and I don't know what to do, because I think, you know, we're all experiencing that, I'm sure, at different levels at different times in this. Like, we're all there together at some point. And what really helped me, and it's not like at first I was like, I just have to keep giving to my community, but I was depleting. So that's when I started to feel really helpless. Like, it just became too large. So it was like, okay, I need to sleep enough. I need to just lay on the floor for a minute. You know, I need to do these tiny little things. And then I love how everyone is saying, what can you do in your community? And sometimes that's just calling someone. Like, I called a friend this morning and said, I'm really sorry you can't visit your mom in the long-term care facility now. And I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of people are feeling the need to kind of back off on social media, which I totally get and also need to do from time to time. And I've also found it really helpful to be able to just reach out to people who come to my mind in different parts of the world and say, hi, how are you? Yeah, so that's
could I just speak up for a second? I wanted to acknowledge Marcia, and can I read her comment?
Yes, please.
I'm listening to this and I'm feeling somewhat angry. As a person with a disability who's had to self-quarantine more than a few times, that would be really great if you look to our disability community for answers. Absolutely. We know it, we've lived it, and we have and continue to deal with helplessness often. Absolutely. And when this is all over, not to once again put us back in the corner. That is so powerful, and that makes me want to cry, that whole comment.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Marcia for sharing her feelings and naming that and putting that out in the space. That's often one of the most marginalized groups that we don't turn to and we don't listen and that we set aside. And I think it was super painful to hear when this whole thing was happening and when it was first coming to light. Well, it's going to affect the elderly and it's going to affect people with compromised immune systems and unfortunately people with disabilities and people living with disabilities, and how many people were so quick to write those people off, which is really hurtful, especially in a community where we're supposed to be talking about unity and we are all in this together. Like, I don't know, this is the biggest message that I can take away from this whole crisis, is that we are all in this together, and that we cannot be hierarchical about whose life is more valuable than somebody else's life. And I want to thank Marcia for putting a voice to that, and I want to acknowledge your anger, and I want to be in solidarity with you with your anger. I'm feeling all of it. I'm feeling all the feelings. I'm actually quite emotional reading that, but I want to thank you for sharing that. And we do need to look to the disability community and those with disabilities to help us navigate this, because they have some expertise around feeling left out and helpless in those situations. If anybody else wants to speak to that.
Is there any yes, thank you, Dianne. That popped up after we were talking, so I'm glad you brought that up. And Marcia, if you could type in any resources you could recommend for us.
Yeah, well, I'm on the board of directors of Accessible Yoga, and I know Molly does a lot of work with them, and we're right now in the middle of our strategic planning process, and it's like, how do we next create the best level of service? And so if Marcia's not familiar with that group, we're looking for input on where we should go, and going back into putting you in the corner, putting people with disabilities back in the corner is exactly what we want to not return to normal again, right? So
right.
And related to that, there's somebody on this panel wrote this book that had something about the story of Tikkun Olam, Barrie.
Say it again.
In your book, you told the story of Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Olam,
Tikkun
the
Olam.
reparation of the world. Yeah.
Right. And so while we address the feeling of helplessness, there's also we manic neurotic types that think we can solve it all, just like Shannon was saying, and all of a sudden we realize we can't do it either. But maybe just if you take a second and share that story, because I think it's a story all the teachers can take back, and it's so laden with wisdom at this part, and also because Marcia and all the other people with disabilities are holding their shard as well, right?
Yeah, it talks about, this will be a free rendering, but it talks about the wholeness of the world at the beginning, the wholeness of the world being shattered into thousands and thousands of pieces. And that our purpose as human beings is to do the work of putting it all back together, of making it whole again, of bringing all the pieces back together. And for me, that's such a beautiful image, of course, on the individual level of what we do in yoga, but now more than ever, and always, the collective whole, and that we all have our part to do. Someone yesterday on the call mentioned, one of our panelists mentioned that story Stone Soup, a children's book where everybody had something different to add to the soup. And I thought that was a beautiful image, that vision of everyone just offering what they can, how they can, to contribute to the whole.
Yeah, we only have to pick up a shard and contribute. We don't have to put the whole puzzle together, but we do have to pick up the shard, so it's and both, right? So
right.
That's such a beautiful story that you had shared, Matt, and I think it's one we can to help both us overdoers and us that feel the helplessness, and we're all probably gonna have both of them. So,
yeah, great.
Could I add one brief, quick thing, or do we not have time, Barrie?
Yeah, sure. I just want to share on the chat. Marcia did share the link to the ADA, the National Center for Disability.com, and there's a link there which I can when we close the webinar, I can copy that link and we can put it when we write the notes up. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, I'll try to make these really brief. One, again, just in response to Marcia, and again, Dianne, thank you for centering that. I just really felt it too. One thing I just also want to offer is remembering just asking folks that who have disabilities or immunocompromised, just asking them directly as well, right? Like, we're so trained to what's the resource? What's the resource that's out there? Who's the organization that's doing it? Which is good. But also, I think talking directly to the folks in our lives who are experiencing that, not only do we get direct wisdom, we actually get to show them that monastery was evacuated and we were asked to leave during our training. They specifically singled out a handful of people and asked those so excluded in her life as the moment when she was asked to not participate because of this chronic cough that she's had for the past 30 years or something. So I don't know. I just really wanted to put that out there, that maybe if we do have somebody in our lives with a chronic cough, or we come across someone with a chronic cough, one, we can check our own response to that. And then if it's appropriate, if we're in a appropriate community, I felt like would have been helpful on my training is for that have been addressed way earlier, saying so-and-so has a chronic cough, this might be coming up for people, it's not a contagious, or checking with her what would have felt helpful. But because that's such a detail right now that we might not have thought of, I just really like to put that out there. Let's check in with folks who have these chronic issues that have nothing to do with this virus, that are now going to be pushed further to the margins, and how devastating and isolating that could feel.
Right. Thank you.
Of course.
Great. Welcome back, Noah. I know you were trying to get back in for the last little while. I'm glad you made it for the wrap up. So,
yeah. I'm on
you're freezing.
tops are not working.
Right. Let's see. We can't really hear your audio. If you want, you can use the chat window to share something. So Great. Yeah. So devastating isolation, but also often quite skilled at resilience. And that is the quality I'm invoking for all of us. Thank you. Thank you for bringing up that quality of resilience, because I feel like that's what we need now more than ever. So thank you all for participating in this conversation. I feel like we're just getting started. So we'll see how this evolves. These conversations evolve. But just to wrap up, let's just go around and let us know where we can find you, where we can learn more about what you do and what you're offering right now. So Shannon, do you want to start?
Sure. You can find me on the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, in the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. And I just did a masterclass with Amanda McKinney all about how to get your yoga online. And we're working really hard to put the next piece of that out. The masterclass was free. I have a COVID-19 page on the Connected Yoga Teacher, and I'm trying really hard to get the links up. So I'm just doing whatever I can to help yoga teachers to get online, because my biggest goal right now is, someone talked about the nervous system here already, is that we need yoga. And it's really easy to think, well, I can't go to yoga now. But if your yoga teacher is inviting you and your community to show up online, I feel like we're winning in community, and we're also practicing the social distancing that we're being asked to do.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for this, Barrie.
Yeah, thank you. Matt?
They can find me at smartsafeyoga.com, and that'll get you to about everything I'm doing. So thank you, Barrie. I appreciate being included.
Yeah, great to have you. Molly?
Yeah, echoing, first of all, Barrie, you're amazing. Thank you. And I'm love being on this panel and getting to know some of you. So same thing. My name is Molly Lannon Kenny, and I can type it in the chat. MollyLannonKenny.org is my website, which is a disaster, but it's still my website. And from there, you can find, I have all the Facebook and the Instagram and all of that. And I'd love to share with you all.
By the way, when we upload the video, we'll put all your websites there. So anyone that goes to the YouTube link will get it.
Fantastic.
Dianne? Your yoga for everyone?
Yes. You can find me on DianneBondyYoga.com, and there's a link for yogaforeveryone.tv, which is free for the next month for those of you who are needing yoga. I'm also posting daily on IG Live practices that you can do. I agree. We all need to have our yoga. So you can find me, and I'm on all the social media channels. Dianne Bondy Yoga, 2 N's in Dianne.
Thank you. And Noah, can we hear you? Are you with us in real time? You look a little frozen. But Noah Maze is on Facebook. He's on Yoga International. Maze Method, I think, mazemethod.com, or Noah Maze Yoga is the website. But again, we'll include the link when we send out in the YouTube notes. And my website is barrierisman.com. My online community is the Skillful Yogi. So we'll bring this to a close in the way many people are adopting now. If you'd like, you can bring your hands together. Honoring that center. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who participated from all over the world. Thank you for those who shared. And I hope we can keep the conversation going. Let's just take a moment to send our blessings to one another for our own well-being and the well-being of all. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Barrie. Thanks for everyone.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Sorry
about my in and outness.
No problem.
Thank you very
Glad you made it back. Good to see you.